God may not be necessary to explain the universe's existence, but does that mean there is no place for spirituality in science? Here now to help us answer that, Lawrence Krauss, theoretical physicist and the author of A Universe from Nothing, Why There Is Something Rather Than Nothing. Welcome back for day 2.
It's great to be back.
Lovely to see you again. Okay, let's just, for those who might have missed yesterday, take a minute off the top and just recap the 3 different types of universes that you were talking about yesterday.
Well, okay, because Einstein told us that space can be curved, there are 3 possible universes you can exist in, so-called open, closed, or flat. A closed universe is a universe that curves in upon itself, kind of like a 2-dimensional surface of a sphere is a closed 2-dimensional universe. And then there's an open universe, which happens to, the 2-dimensional version of it happens to look like a saddle, and a flat universe. Flat universe is the boundary between a closed and open universe, and it happens to be, remarkably, the universe we live in.
Okay. I want to move on and pick up, as the intro suggested, on the subject that I suspect you get more mail about than anything else,
Yeah.
and that is whether or not science and religion can kind of coexist. Does our current understanding of the cosmos, in your view, make God unnecessary?
You got it exactly right. It makes God unnecessary. I can't prove that God doesn't exist. That's impossible to do. I can't prove that we were here 3 seconds ago. Maybe we were created 2 seconds ago with the memories of the delightful interview we had yesterday. But what I can say is that apparently, as far as we can see, it's plausible that the universe arose without any need for any supernatural entity. It's kind of like what's happened in the last 40 years in cosmology, which is the reason I wrote the book, is kind of like what happened in biology 150 years ago. Before Darwin, life was a miracle. Every form of life was specially created for its environment, and it was beautifully designed to exist that way. What Darwin showed was that it was plausible, based on his observations, that all life forms evolved from a single form of life, and natural selection could produce the incredible diversity of life with the appearance of design. And he just showed it was plausible. He didn't know about DNA. He didn't know about genetics in detail. It was plausible based on all the evidence available to him at the time. And he wrote a beautiful book based on that. And so now, of course, we've learned over 150 years that plausibility is in fact true, that we understand genetics. We now know that evolution is a fact. In fact, it's the foundation of modern biology. I like to say that because in my country, there's too many people who seem to think that it's some theory that's not.
You call it a theory.
Yeah, well, and that's just like nothing. The word theory means something different in science, and it means something that's been very well tested. Quantum theory, you know, the theory of gravity. I mean, you know, gravity is there, and the fact that it's a theory means that we've tested these ideas over and over again. So, but what Darwin did was show you don't need God to create all the different species. It can happen without God. Now, the big question, of course, is he got to the first life form, and he didn't describe the origin of life. He just described the origin of species, as he said. And we still don't know the origin of life, but it's quite plausible, based on everything we know, that chemistry can turn to biology. And I think most scientists would argue you don't need anything supernatural to turn chemistry into biology. And I suspect in the next decade or so, we'll understand that process. We're close. The institute I run has just had a meeting on the origin of life, and we're getting closer and closer. What the next stage, of course, and the last bastion of God for many people was, well, look, okay, you might not need God to create species or life, but you need God to create the universe, because all these galaxies are out there, and you need something to make something from nothing. And what we've discovered is that it's not necessarily so. That, in fact, given the laws of physics as we understand them, it's quite plausible. And, in fact, our universe has the characteristics of a universe. If you were going to create a universe from nothing, it would have the characteristics of the universe we live in. We're at the same stage that Darwin was at 150 years ago. We can show it's plausible. We don't know the laws of physics right back to t = 0. I want to make that clear. But it's plausible. And that, to me, is worth celebrating, because it makes God more irrelevant. And I think that's a great thing.
Why?
Because, because first of all, it's amazing if we can understand how we got here. And I also think it makes the universe and our lives much more precious if there isn't some cosmic dictator in the sky. That I should say, look, my own feeling that not having a God is a good thing is completely irrelevant to the fact that we've been driven to this possibility by physics. But I find that possibility very exciting, because I think it makes the meaning in our lives is much more exciting. If the only meaning in our lives is the meaning we create, then it's much more precious. Our brief time on Earth is much more precious, and we should use those brains that have evolved to enjoy and learn about the universe. It makes everything we do have more meaning than if it's determined by some Saddam Hussein in the sky.
Ooh, ouch, ouch, ouch. Okay.
Well, I mean, I think about that. I mean, at least in the world's major religion, I got that from my friend Christopher Hitchens. But look, I mean, you know, Saddam Hussein just tortured people while they were alive. But, you know, if you torture them for all eternity, that's much worse, don't you think?
I'm moving right along. But I wonder if there's not some spiritual / physical intersection when it comes to faith. You need to have, you as a man who does not, never mind, doesn't believe in God.
I don't use the word belief.
Okay, so who has yet to see proof of the existence of God, or put it however you want. But you have faith in your ability and in science's ability to uncover the great mysteries of the world as we go forward, and that will happen. In the same way as the religious person has faith that there's something bigger than us here.
No, I disagree. I mean, of course I have faith that science works, but my faith is vindicated by experiment. If science stops working, then I'll stop having faith. I mean, the great thing about science is your faith is shakeable. I may have faith that some idea I've come up with is correct, but the minute it's proved wrong by observation, I throw it out by, like yesterday's newspaper.
Are you from New York?
I was born in New York.
Okay, so you know, if not for God, how do you explain the '69 Mets? Really?
Accidents happen all the time. Richard Feynman used to say that. I mean, you know, we all think the easiest people to fool are ourselves. In fact, that's very important. We all think what happens to us is significant. And we ascribe significance and often, therefore, divine significance to random events. You know, Feynman used to go around to say to people, you know, you won't believe what happened to me today. You won't believe what happened to me today. And people would say, what? And they'd say, absolutely nothing. Because, you know what, you might have a million crazy dreams, and then one night you dream that your sister's leg is broken, and the next day she breaks her arm, and you go, wow, cosmic. But you just forget it's an accident. And so accidents happen, and we have to be very, very careful not to ascribe significance to things that are just coincidences. It may make you sad, but as I've said before, the universe doesn't exist to make you happy.
Why does it exist?
Well, you know,
not to make us happy. Why does it exist?
We've talked about this before. Why questions aren't good ones.
Right,
I only concern myself with how it exists, and the fact that it exists is worth celebrating, because if it wasn't, we couldn't have this conversation.
Fair enough. I want to go to control room if I can. The Stuart Firestein quote from his book, Ignorance, How It Drives Science. I want to read this to you, Lawrence, and then get your comment on it. Science, then, is not like the onion in the often used analogy of stripping away layer after layer to get at some core central fundamental truth. Rather, it's like the magic well. No matter how many buckets of water you remove, there's always another one to be had. Or even better, it's like the widening ripples of the surface of a pond, the ever larger circumference in touch with the more and more of what's outside the circle, the unknown. This growing forefront is where science occurs. It is a mistake to bob around in the circle of facts instead of riding the wave to the great expanse lying outside the circle. Let's pull this apart a little bit here. Are you comfortable with the notion of uncertainty?
Absolutely. You have to be, because science is based on uncertainty. A lot of people think it's a weakness of science, but it's actually a strength, because it's probably the only area of human activity where we can quantify our uncertainty. You deal with politicians a lot, and claiming to know things that you don't know is a real problem in public policy. And in science, we are clear about what we know, and we're also equally clear about what we don't know. And what we don't know is what drives us. People seem to think that scientists go in and say, "Oh, I'm afraid of the unknown," or "I don't want to be proved wrong." But in fact, proving others wrong is the way to become famous in science. It's what you try and do every day when you go into work. You try and prove all your colleagues wrong. The fact that we can quantify the level of our knowledge and know that there's some things we don't know drives us. It's that uncertainty that gets me going into work every day. The mysteries.
Do you know why you want to know what you want to know about what you don't know?
I think that's a good question. I'll try and understand that one. I think we're hardwired. I think humans are hardwired to want to solve puzzles. They're also hardwired to probably believe in a divine entity. Religion has been ubiquitous throughout human history. So, and the fact that we're hardwired to do things is just the way it is. I think we want to solve puzzles. Probably we're hardwired to do that by evolution, to survive. but I think everyone gets some satisfaction out of solving a puzzle. And that's what science is. It's solving puzzles. We do a huge disservice to students by telling them that science is a body of facts. As that quote said, it's not just a set of facts. That's boring. It's a way of solving puzzles. It's a process. And that process leads us further. And it is true that we may never get to an ultimate theory of everything. I disagree with the quote in the sense that I don't know for sure that the well doesn't have an end. I don't know that we won't have a theory of everything, but it doesn't really matter. Because learning, solving those puzzles, and facing mysteries is what makes life worth living. And I think it's true for not just science. I think it's true in all aspects of human activity.
But I remember going to, in your hometown, I think, is it St. Patrick's, where Timothy Dolan is the cardinal?
Well, I think so. Although it's in my hometown, but I actually grew up in Canada, I'm happy to say.
Okay. And I remember going to celebrate Mass one Sunday morning.
Okay.
And this issue came up. And Cardinal Dolan said, it is your shortcoming that there is no room for faith in your life, because that will inevitably make your life less, and then name your adjectives, less rich, less interesting,
well,
less,
isn't that pompous? You know, I find cardinals tend to be pompous, and usually wrong, from my experience. I think it's, you know, look, faith for some people enriches their lives, provides them solace and comfort. But to argue that if you're willing to accept the universe for what it is, that somehow that diminishes you, it's really pompous nonsense, I think. I get great spiritual fulfillment out of the universe because of the
spiritual?
Yeah, if you want, I get awe and wonder and amazement, and I'm uplifted. I feel one with the cosmos by looking at a Hubble Space Telescope picture. And as I often said, that kind of spirituality is better than the spirituality of religion because it's true.
It's interesting, though, that you can use the word spiritual and, you know, physics, cosmology, whatever in the same sentence.
I really get upset when people say science takes it. Yes, people say that, and they say science demeans our existence, but it doesn't. You know, again, to turn to Feynman, he said, you know, that knowing how a rainbow works doesn't make it any less wonderful. It makes it more wonderful. You know, rainbow's a beautiful thing, but learning about the physics behind it makes it more beautiful. Science makes the world a more fascinating place, one that is more amazing and one more worth living in. And so I am offended when people say that science somehow takes out the spirituality of the existence. It enhances that existence in a way which, as I say, is much more interesting than the books written by Iron Age peasants who didn't even know the Earth orbited the sun.
You mentioned Feynman. Should we hear from him?
Yeah, I love hearing from him.
We got a clip standing by.
Sure.
Okay, here, this is off YouTube. Go ahead. This is Richard Feynman. Roll tape, please.
I have a friend who's an artist, and he's sometimes taken a view which I don't agree with very well. He'll hold up a flower and say, look how beautiful it is. And I'll agree, I think. And he says, you see, as I as an artist can see how beautiful this is, but you as a scientist, oh, take this all apart and it becomes a dull thing. And I think that he's kind of nutty. First of all, the beauty that he sees is available to other people and to me too. I believe, although I may not be quite as refined as aesthetically as he is, that I can appreciate the beauty of a flower. At the same time, I see much more about the flower than he sees. I could imagine the cells in there, the complicated actions inside, which also have a beauty. I mean, it's not just beauty at this dimension of 1 centimeter. There's also beauty at a smaller dimensions. The inner structure, also the processes, the fact that the colors and the flower evolved in order to attract insects to pollinate it is interesting. It means that insects can see the color.
So you can see, despite your physicist's background, the beauty of those flowers and Niagara Falls and all of that superior to an artist. I'm asking.
Yeah, science can, because we can see the flower in lots more colors than you can with our eyes. We can see it in X-rays. We can see it in gamma rays. What science has done is open new windows on the universe. And how can that be a bad thing? Opening new windows allows the artistic spirit in everyone to thrive more. Science, I maintain, is like art and literature and music. It gives us a new perspective of our place in the cosmos and allows new fertile soil for our imaginations to grow.
Can you give me a personal example of that? When you saw something in science and you had what the rest of us might call a kind of an emotional, spiritual, artistic reaction?
Well, as I say, every time I look at a Hubble Space Telescope picture and I see hundreds of galaxies 10 billion light years away, and I think the light took 10 billion years to get to me, so that means that the stars that are in that picture probably don't even exist anymore, and the civilizations around those stars, if there were any, don't exist anymore. I find that's ground for my imagination. Probably for me, the fact that empty space has energy, which I'm pleased to say was something actually proposed before it was observed, it was so wild and crazy that even when I proposed it, I didn't believe it was true. And then I discovered it actually was. That's when the universe surprises you. And I just find that what makes worth getting up every day, worth getting up for.
Okay. Let me read, I'm going to read a couple of quotes for you now.
Okay.
Here's the first. Carl Sagan. You've heard of him.
Yes, I have. I knew him.
Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality. When we recognize our place in an immensity of light years and in the passage of ages, when we grasp the intricacy, beauty, and subtlety of life, then that soaring feeling, that sense of elation and humility combined is surely spiritual. And then I'm going to buttress that with the British philosopher Alan Watts, who once said, "You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself. We do not come into this world, we come out of it, as leaves from a tree. As the ocean waves, the universe peoples. Every individual is an expression of the whole realm of nature, a unique action of the total universe." Does that speak to you?
The first one speaks to me more than the second, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
Obviously, I agree with what Carl Sagan said. It's a beautiful book it came from. The second, you know, look, it's a nice idea. I found it a little new agey for me. I mean, it gives a sense that somehow we are connected to the universe, but not in such an abstract sense. We're connected to the universe by our atoms. Every atom in our body was once inside an exploding star. We talked about exploding stars before. Every atom in our body was inside a star that exploded. The atoms in your left hand might have been inside a different star than your right hand, because the elements that make you up, the carbon, the nitrogen, and the oxygen, they weren't made in the Big Bang. The only elements that were made in the Big Bang were hydrogen, helium, and a little bit of lithium, and I'm assuming lithium isn't important to you, but carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen are, and the only places those are made are in the cores of stars. So we are literally stardust. We are stars, and they are us. And that, of course, speaks to what that quote was about, but in a real, definite way. That's what I mean by the fact that the science adds to that vague, those vague philosophical meanderings. It tells us things that are worth sitting back and reflecting about.
Does it feel as if, with that second quote, I guess in particular, that science has drifted so much it's almost intersected with Eastern philosophy?
Well, in a vague way. I once wrote a book about the origin of dark matter, and I went back to the Rig Veda. And yeah, there's some vague connection, but I really think it's dangerous to overplay that connection. You know, there are words in those Eastern mysticism that some of those words connect to what we know today, but in no sense did they have that knowledge. In no sense did they understand that the Earth even orbited the sun. So when people say, you know, 5,000 years ago, people really understood what we know now, we're just rediscovering that ancient wisdom, that's garbage. That's garbage. We are discovering things about the universe all the time because we're observing it. The only way we can learn things is not peering into our own minds, but peering outward to learn from the universe. And when we stop looking and stop asking questions, we'll stop learning, and that's the end.
We're not quite at the end yet, but let me see if we can come full circle here. Would it be important to you to be able to prove God does not exist?
No, I mean, first of all, I know it's unprovable, because God is a concept that's not falsifiable. That's a slippery concept that you keep, you know, a lot of people call it God of the gaps. They keep putting God where, you know, it used to be in the origin of species. Well, it got rid of there. You know, they keep putting God in the places where we haven't learned about yet.
No, in the details.
But the problem with that God of the gaps argument is when we fill the gaps, where does God go? So for me, you know, God has become so irrelevant that I don't care. I mean, God is never discussed in physics meetings because we understand how the universe works, and at many levels, there's many levels we don't understand. But the fact that we can look back to the earliest moments of the Big Bang and begin to understand that, and to the far future and to the far depths of the universe, without needing any supernatural being, means that God is irrelevant. As the physicist Steven Weinberg, who also I know doesn't happen to believe in God, has said, you know, most physicists don't think about God enough to know if they even believe in them, because God's irrelevant. And as I tried to show in my book, God is irrelevant. And so it's not important to me to prove that God doesn't exist. It's important to me to celebrate the universe we actually live in. And if there's a God, I don't care. The beauty of the universe is what's worth celebrating, and getting people to realize that they need to accept the universe for what it is, rather than imposing their own wishes and desires upon the universe. Because when you do that, you make bad decisions. And I think that's the real problem for me in some religious views, is that you impose your desires and hopes upon the universe, and then you end up with nonsense. You end up saying homosexuality is bad, when in fact there's every bit of evidence that homosexuality is perfectly normal and natural in many species, not just in humans. And so when you impose your morality based on, again, a morality of ancient Iron Age people who really didn't know anything about the universe, you're limiting yourself, and you're limiting your actions and your policies. And that's one of the reasons why I want policies to be based on empirical evidence.
I appreciate that, but I wonder, as a guy who spends so much of his life trying to solve the mysteries of the universe, that's the biggest mystery there is, for a lot of people anyway.
No, to me the biggest mystery is how did the universe come into being? And some people like to answer that by saying, it's a cop-out. God is a cop-out. They say, we don't know, it's God. I think for most people, they say, I can't comprehend this. There must be something I don't understand, and I'm going to pose an intelligence on it. And that may be true, but it's not required. There are things we don't understand. There may be things we'll never comprehend, but that doesn't mean there's an intelligence behind it. There were lots of things, as you pointed out, 100 years ago, there were lots of things we didn't comprehend, and we thought might never be comprehended. And it's amazing that some of them we comprehend now. It makes the journey worth carrying on.
In our last few minutes here, I want to ask you about the guy who wrote the afterword for your book.
Okay.
Because Richard Dawkins, who's been in this studio before, and we had an interesting moment together, I must say, he kind of fesses up that he didn't like you very much when he first encountered you. And yet now here he is writing the afterword to your book. So somewhere along the way, you guys kissed and made up.
Well, we become good friends.
What's the story
and done a series of events around the world together. Well, you know, look, I think I asked Richard Dawkins, in fact, in the beginning of this new movie we just made, you know, is your goal to explain science or to destroy religion? And as he would say, they go hand in hand. But my first question to him was, look, you know, if you want people to listen to you, it's not always the best idea to go up to them and say, you know what, everything you believe is wrong and you're really stupid. It's not usually a good opening line to get them to listen. Well, to some extent it is, and to some extent I appreciate it, because consciousness raising is an important thing, and he does that very well. But I think it's important that people of faith realize that science is not a threat to faith. It's a threat to their faith if they think the Earth is 6,000 years old. If they need the Earth to be 6,000 years old to believe in God, give up God, because it ain't. Okay? But as I tried to point out, science goes along about its business independent of the existence of God. And evolution happened, whether or not you believe in God. The Big Bang happened, whether or not you believe in God. And so therefore, your beliefs in God shouldn't rely on things which disagree with the evidence of empirical reality. But if you, for your daily existence, find a need for some purpose to the universe, as long as that need doesn't conflict with the evidence of reality, then I have no problem with your need to have a faith. And I think in some sense, maybe that's where Richard and I differed, although I don't think we really differ that much, because what we both agree about is that organized religion, on the whole, has been bad for humanity. Again, as Steve Weinberg has said, there are good people and there are bad people. Good people do good things, bad people do bad things. When good people do bad things, it's religion.
And when you look around at the world today and you see what is done, quote unquote, in the name of religion, what do you think?
Well, I think that the problem, I mean, look, again, religion has not been universally bad. For many people, it causes them to have charity and empathy, or at least they believe it causes them to have those things. But religion has, on the whole, been responsible for more violence and hatred throughout human history than almost anything else. It's, you know, you don't fly, I hate to say this because it's a hackneyed example, you don't fly planes into a building because you want to understand the universe. And you do it because you believe in you're divinely right And it's such an absurd belief that it causes you to do irrational things. And so I think, unfortunately, organized religion, on the whole, has been bad, and the universe would be, and the world would be better without it.
Much more of these thoughts, rather, in A Universe from Nothing, Lawrence Krauss's latest, Why There Is Something Rather Than Nothing. And we've very much enjoyed having you here these last couple of days. Thanks so much for visiting us here at TVO.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you, as it always is.
Thank you so much.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.